Hi, I'm Katie Powers.
I'm Johnny Price.
And you're listening to Adventure Capital, a podcast by Wefunder.
Wefunder is a startup based here in San Francisco that enables other startups to raise capital through equity crowdfunding.
In this podcast, we share the stories of founders who have successfully raised capital through equity crowdfunding on Wefunder.
Today, we're talking with Tim Kelly, co-founder and chairman of the board of Chattanooga FC, a soccer team now owned by the citizens of Chattanooga. Earlier this year, Tim and his team raised $880,000 from over 3,000 investors on Wefunder, and I'm proud to say that I was one of them. The Chattanooga FC story epitomizes a community coming together, and it's exactly what the Jobs Act was passed for. Here's Tim. Tim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. Maybe you could start by telling us a little about what you guys are building at Chattanooga FC.
Well, we hope we're building a better mousetrap to help fix American soccer. We started it 10 years ago as a community-based team, not a franchise, playing in a summer league here, and it's grown and grown, and it's really become a community fixture here and kind of a vanguard of a movement to grow and really put soccer on the map of the United States in a way that it hasn't been before.
Got it. And what league are you guys playing in with Chattanooga?
So we're currently in the NPSL, the National Premier Soccer League, which is a big league, almost 100 teams nationwide. Typically plays from March to August. Really a 4-month league. We're in the process of forming a new league with some other larger teams looking to expand and move up and play longer seasons. So that's part of why we did the raise.
Got it. And how does that league relate to, MLS is probably the soccer league in America that most people will be familiar with. How does your league relate?
Well, it's there, the rest of the world, and quite literally the rest of the world, with the exception of Australia, which is in transition, it has a system known as promotion and relegation. So you've got tiers, and you either win your way up or you lose your way down, right? So most Americans can relate to the idea that, if the Atlanta Braves finish last in Major League Baseball, they would get sent down to AAA baseball, and the winner of AAA league would come up to the major leagues in the following year. So it's really the perfect expression of meritocracy.
Right. It was always, as coming from the UK myself, it was always very confusing to me that in American sports, the team that finishes last gets rewarded with a first-round draft pick the next year, or maybe an easier schedule. Whereas in England, if you come the bottom three in the Premier League, you get relegated, you can get relegated again, and vice versa. If you're coming up and getting promoted from the Championship, then you're in the Premiership, and that's really, really exciting. Your team can progress. It's weirdly unmeritocratic in a country like America that glories in capitalism. It was always strange to me.
Yeah, so my hero of the journalistic world in soccer is an author at Michigan named Stefan Szymanski, who's actually English as well and came to the United States relatively late in life. But as he said in one of his books, it's a high irony that in many ways the United States is the most capitalistic country in the world, except when it comes to sports. We build big bumpers around them so that the poor billionaires and millionaires, are insulated from the vagaries and the outrageous fortune of running crappy teams. We'd like to see that change in the United States. Obviously, to get back to your question, the MLS is the top tier, but it's artificially and sort of synthetically frozen in the top tier because it's just the top 30 markets in the United States by size, right? So a team like Chattanooga would never have the opportunity to get there. Below that, you have the USL, which has 2 divisions. Both of these, by the way, are franchises that you just have to go buy. And so there's no way for a soccer team in the United States to earn its way up. But without getting too deep into the politics of soccer, we're hopeful that will change at some point in the not too distant future.
Love it. And maybe one more question just on like Chattanooga FC before we get into the Wefunder component. But tell us a little bit about where the idea for the team came from. Who was the team? Were you guys all kind of in Chattanooga passionate about soccer? Or what was the genesis of Chattanooga FC?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Chattanooga is a relatively small town, and it was basically a friend of a friend had played in this league down in Birmingham, Alabama for another team, moved up to Chattanooga and mentioned to our mutual friend, hey, I played in the soccer league. I'd love to start a team here. It's really great. I think we can do it. And this person, it was actually Crew Brock, reached out and said, I know you're a soccer fan. Would you, and the guy that runs the stadium, would you like to be involved? And, I jumped at the chance, and the rest is history. I mean, from that first phone call to the time we had a team on the field was probably 5 months. But it's important to note that at that, I'm 52, guys in my vintage, back in, particularly in the South in the United States, you kind of didn't admit in public that you were a soccer fan, or you'd be made thought of as a lesser than sport. And so, that changed at some point, and our timing was just excellent in that regard. So, we had a team up and running in March of that year, and it took off like wildfire from there.
That's really awesome. As a soccer player of over 20 years now, I loved watching your campaign. I just hope that you guys have a women's team on deck here. But yeah, so why did you guys decide to run an equity crowdfunding campaign?
Well, so let me first say we had a women's team. Unfortunately, part of this whole drama is that because we snubbed our nose at the franchise model, the franchisor decided that they would put a team here on top of us to teach us a lesson. And so what we're experiencing now in Chattanooga is kind of really a watershed moment of which of these models is going to prevail. And unfortunately, they were able to convince the coach of and general manager of our women's team to go over to the dark side. So we lost our women's team. We have a long-standing dedication to the women's game, but we will build that back. So on to how this started. We were from the very beginning. I think it was actually the end of our second season. I've told this story before, but we were sitting around with a couple of the fans after the game. One of whom had done something similar with a British team, and we were talking about the Packers and the fact that we would never leave Chattanooga. And we kind of stumbled across this idea that, well, if we're never going to leave, then wouldn't it be great if we could figure out a way to sell equity to local people? Because Chattanooga has a very strong sense of place and a strong sense of community. And from that moment, we really, I wouldn't say, we were religiously dedicated to it, but we worked hard. We had friends that were Packers fans, and we got the prospectus and read all the legal details. We actually, bought a few hours from a lawyer to get an opinion, and he basically said, forget it. Like there's no way that this could happen without spending $500,000 in legal fees. It's really, a kind of a preamble to the reason that, Wefunder and equity crowdfunding came about, because we did not have access to capital. And it was probably late, it was probably 2017. We began to talk to our friends at Cutting Edge Capital out in Oakland, really about how we might be able to sell equity to a German club, we have an affiliation with Wolfsburg. And at that time, we were literally talking to them about a buy-in, a partnership. And some of these same questions came up, and they said, well, did you know you could do this Section CF equity crowdfunding thing? And I said, oh my God, no, I had no idea. We've been talking about that from Jump Street, and that's how it came about. We quickly kind of dropped the idea of seeking direct investment from another club, and just thought, we're going to do this for sure.
That's awesome. And what was the outcome? How have you seen your community engage within the campaign and after? I know you just recently closed, but would love to hear how it went for you.
It went fantastically well. I mean, it couldn't have been, it was just it killed so many birds with one stone. it was just unbelievable. I mean, as it turns out, again, we had this competitive threat that came to town around the same time. Again, we had been planning this for 3 months prior to the announcement, but we knew we had it in the can. And when we decided to do it, I mean, the amazing thing about doing it for a sports team is the fans are literally and figuratively investing in the team, becoming invested in the team. So they're bought in, and it's real equity. And we had to go back and forth on a lot of that about, it's a gimmick. No, it's not a gimmick. I mean, there have been a lot of gimmicks exercised on the American public for the last many, many years. And I think it's going to take a little while. It's always hard to go first. It's going to take a little while for people to understand that this is real. But they love the idea of owning a part of their team. So
to your point on the competition, I have a friend who lives in Chattanooga, Marco Perez, and I saw him post on LinkedIn when the campaign was going on, and he said something along the lines of, hey, other Chattanooga team, good luck, growing and winning out as the soccer team in Chattanooga, because me and thousands of other local citizens here in Chattanooga just invested in Chattanooga FC. And I thought that was like exactly what you're talking about here, is like how to beat the dark side. Well, the best way is to engage local people literally as investors in the club and the business.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it is a way to sort of immunize yourself against a non-local competition. And so, I mean, as I've said to a lot of other people talking about this, it is really about localism versus, in this case, sort of franchise corporatism. I mean, obviously, I'm a businessman. I don't begrudge McDonald's. But I hope somebody will eat at a local burger joint before they would eat at a McDonald's, or worse yet, a restaurant that was just owned by some out of town chain and not even a local franchisee. So it accomplishes a lot of things for us.
Yeah. So for the listeners who aren't as familiar with your campaign, you guys raised just under $900K from 3,288 investors, which is an insane number. Definitely a larger number of investors than our normal campaign, and super impressive. How did you execute? Like, what was maybe more of the logistical side of reaching out to these folks? Like, how did you really build the momentum?
Well, I'm a marketing guy, so this is kind of red meat for me, and I knew when we were doing it that like this is going to be fun, And so we spent a lot of time. We had a lot of people rooting for us, and we had a lot of people volunteer their time and their brains to kind of help think about how to position the campaign and what should be included. And one of the things we stumbled on very quickly was the public aspect is really important. So. I came up with this idea of a yard sign, just like you would have in a political campaign that says owner. And, when people, obviously we went back and forth on, well, how much stuff should people get before the round closes versus before, when they just decide to invest. The yard signs were not free, but obviously they weren't terribly expensive. So particularly locally, I think that was a big deal. We were able to, put those things out there. And then once we were able to, we had them in people's yards, we would go by and take pictures of them, maybe with their kids with the yard. And then we put those on some digital billboards around town. We use social media, obviously, to get the message out. We advertised on our local public radio station. We felt like that was a good, demographic, psychographic fit. And we pushed, the narrative with local media pretty heavily as well. It didn't get picked up quite as voraciously as I'd hoped with local media, because I think it's, again, having done a lot of startups already, it's hard to go first, and if you're opening a market, people don't understand context, and they literally just kind of sometimes don't get it. Whereas if you're second or third in a market that already exists and they understand the meme, for lack of a better word, they grasp it more quickly. But still and yet, the results were were obviously beyond our not our wildest expectations. I hoped we'd hit 1 million. I'm an optimist. You have to be an entrepreneur, but it's certainly in excess. But my sort of real number in my head was 500,000. So yeah, we were thrilled. I will say.
Well, the other number was the number of investors, right? So because I was looking like, I think the population of Chattanooga is 180,000, and so the fact that you got 3,288 investors, assuming most of those live in Chattanooga. I was one of them, by the way. So not all of them live in Chattanooga, but
not yet.
Not
Tony's
yet. I'm going to move there.
Is aggressive. He's going to move pretty soon and be front row.
Got to get to more of these home games. But, assuming most of those lived in Chattanooga, you're talking of almost 2% of the population of the city investing in the soccer team, which is just insane. Yeah. It's amazing. And I remember the day you guys launched on Wefunder, we were all just doing high fives in the office because we have a Slack channel that shows all the investments coming in. And we've never seen it light up like you guys. Like Meow Wolf in Santa Fe raised $1 million in 2 days. Legion M, which is a movie company, have raised from thousands and thousands of investors, but over multiple campaigns. I think that 3,288 is the most number of individual investors in any regulation crowdfunding campaign in Wefunder's history, and probably any Reg CF campaign since May 2016 when the law changed. And, we were just seeing, and almost everyone was $125, which was the minimum investment buy-in. And it was just so inspiring. I feel like this is just what Wefunder and equity crowdfunding is all about.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was amazing and gratifying to us as well, and we love seeing that long tail of small investors. Most of which were local. I will say one of the things that really surprised us, and we now have a spreadsheet where we've sliced and diced all the data, is we have investors from 30 countries around the world and from all 50 states.
Wow.
So, yeah, no, I mean, listen, we're talking to the Convention and Visitors Bureau here about how we can leverage this into people, visiting town to see their team. So there are a lot of really fascinating angles to it to jump off from this point. It's not over for us. I mean, that's the other part is like this now becomes a great marketing tool for us to continue the dialogue with our investors.
So Tim, any really exciting or cool stories that you can talk about as coming out of the Wefunder campaign?
Well, I think, this has gotten a lot of people's attention nationally and internationally. I'll tell you, I was at a conference in New York and met the head of La Liga in North America. There's a La Liga CEO in North America named Boris Gartner. And we played an exhibition game here against one of the two big teams from Sevilla, Spain.
Betis, right?
Betis, exactly. And, he was very supportive and, amazing. And then, I don't know if it was part of that or not, but I got an invitation to speak at the Johan Cruyff Institute in Barcelona, which is incredibly intimidating. But and I imagine that has a lot to do with this because I think world soccer sees the potential for the United States, but I think they've seen that it's underpunched its weight and underperformed its potential. And I think equity crowdfunding and a change in the landscape could be what it takes to really unlock it in this country.
I love it. So basically go on Wefunder and then get to meet Leo Messi is the takeaway there.
Yeah, basically that's a few data points in between here and there, but that's a good summary.
Yeah, and that's actually something I would love to kind of close on is, the future. So you now have these 3,288 owners. How are you going to leverage them? How are you going to continue to engage them? And more broadly, I guess, what does the future hold for Chattanooga FC?
Well, first and foremost, we're getting out. We've got, really a nice inlaid enamel lapel pins that say owner. We're getting out to folks. We're going to do owner merchandise. That's just a straight ripoff from the good old Green Bay Packers, frankly. And, it won't be free to investors, but we're going to price it, squarely and fairly, including we're doing a jersey that will have the names of all 3,288 investors on it. And about 12 font. Yeah. And they'll all be on it twice in case it gets covered up by a number or something. But we've already had like 500 pre-orders for that. People are really excited about that. And so, not as commercially one of the benefits we wrote into the into the agreement, one of the rights for the shareholders is to elect a member to our board, and so we're going to have nominations for that board seat, and we're going to turn the game in at halftime at a game will be a chance for the top preliminary folks to get up and say why they should be elected to board, and then we'll actually use the game as a board meeting, right? We'll let people that aren't here send proxies in and give everybody else a big a card with a red side and a green side, and we'll vote. And I think the first vote we'll have is to never leave Chattanooga, and I expect that'll be a unanimous vote, but we'll see.
That's amazing. When you say you're a marketing guy, Tim, you're not lying about that.
Johnny just pulled up Google Flights. He's booked his flight to Chattanooga. Yeah. He is going to run for this board seat.
I'm on Zillow. I'm on Zillow.com right now, searching for houses in Chattanooga.
I can help you with that too.
I love it. Well, maybe the last thing we ask every entrepreneur a couple of questions in closing. Firstly, if someone's looking at running an equity crowdfunding campaign, any advice for them on how to execute on that or how to think about it? And then secondly, more generally, if anyone's looking at starting up a sports team, a would-be entrepreneur or growing that, any advice for them more broadly as well?
So on the first one, not to be, a shameless shill for you guys, but again, we ask a very reputable third party who we should be looking at, and she gave us the name of 2 or 3 outfits, but you guys, were the first, and obviously had that first mover advantage and are very good at what you do. So we were thrilled with Wefunder in the process, and the way that you handled it, the templated way to go through it was all great. I would say, it's useful to have outside legal counsel if you can afford it to also kind of help answer odd questions. So those are the 2 main pieces of advice. And as far as the sports teams go, it's really no different than a bakery or a brewery or anything else. If you have an engaged community, I'd say for a sports team, it's hard to start out of the gate and say, we're going to go do equity crowdfunding. But if you've been doing it for a few years and you have a really loyal following, of rabid fans who love what you do, then why not, right? Why would you not do it? I would say we had a lot of internal discussion about that share price, and obviously went on the low side. If I had it to do over, I'd probably do it a little higher. Ultimately, it's kind of a price elasticity question. But I have no regrets, but I'm happy to talk to anybody that's interested. I've already fielded a lot of questions, and I'm happy to talk to anybody who is curious, because I'm very excited about the ability for this product to really change the face of American sports.
Wow. Thank you so much, Tim. We are super excited to talk to you and are huge fans of your team, both the soccer team and your leadership team. You guys are amazing. So thanks so much for your time, and we can't wait to see you in Chattanooga.
Yeah, I can't wait to meet you guys in person. I hope you can come to a game soon.
I'm going to be wearing my shirt with my name on it.
Twice.
Right, thanks so much, Tim. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Adventure Capital is brought to you by your fundraising team here at Wefunder, which consists of Johnny Price, Katie Powers, and myself, Oliver Foyahan. We'll be sharing the adventures of one of our Wefunder founders every other week. If you have any comments, ideas, suggestions, or would just like to find out more about Wefunder or our founders, don't hesitate to contact us at hello@wefunder.com. We'll see you next time.